first thing to note about this podcast explanation is that you should use it alongside my chart of things you could say about different types of sources. You'll find that chart just next to this podcast, so get it open and have a look at it. It might be a good idea to have a look at it and use it when you're being given homeworks on these types of questions or doing them in class, because the things that are on there really will help you. When you're asked to assess how useful a source is, then the answer is pretty much always, and I mean always, that the source is useful for some things, but there are reasons that mean it isn't perfect. Think of this analogy if you like. What if I asked you about an iPhone and asked you, how useful is this iPhone for a person who wants to put up some shelves? The answer would be that the iPhone isn't the best thing to be using to put up some shelves, but you can use it to get some apps that might help, and if it comes to it, you could probably use it as a makeshift hammer. You have to pay close attention to what the question is asking you, and you can't just assess the source generally. Focusing on the question is key. Going back to our iPhone analogy, you could spend hours writing about how useful an iPhone could be in general. But if the question was, how useful is this iPhone to somebody who's trying to shave his face, then your answer will look irrelevant and a bit stupid, because you'll have gone on things that are nothing to do with shaving faces. You'll have just talked generally about how useful an iPhone is. When you're looking at a source to assess how useful it is, you must write about two key aspects of the source. First, you must look at the provenance of the source, which is a fancy way of saying that you must look at who wrote the source, when they wrote it, where they wrote it, and why, which you will always find at the top. Looking at the provenance will help you to consider reasons why you might find the source useful and why you might not. My sheet that you can download just next to this podcast that I've mentioned already can help you with assessing the provenance. But you can't just look at the provenance alone. You can't assume, for example, that a newspaper is exaggerating. You've got to look at the second aspect, which is the source content. Because sometimes sources won't always do what you expect them to. And in fact, examiners will often put sources in to trip you up, to make sure that you're not just blindly saying, well, it's a newspaper and so it might exaggerate to sell sources, because they want to see that you're actually looking at the source and not just repeating what you've been taught to memorise before the exam. So, to assess the source content, you should be using quotes to point out anything that you know from your own knowledge to be true, or anything that you can use your own knowledge to question. Even though it's source analysis, you do have to have your own knowledge. Anyway, next you'll see a list of targets that you will have been given, potentially, followed by a source and a question, followed by an example answer done by me, which, as usual, is colour-coded in some aspects to give you an idea about where I've tried to do some of the things. So, provenance, source content checked against own knowledge, and plenty of quotes. This question is quite tough, so good luck with this. Remember to pause the video at the points that you need to stop and to study, especially my example and the source which I've given to go with the example.